it's not far before it's, you know, well, it is last light getting now, but I've just scampered down to a little place and I'm going to see if I can get one or two sticks. It's not a full harvest, but I'm killing two birds with one stone, which I quite often do, walk the dog and see what I come up with. So here we go. You can quite easily see why we called Bracken Bracken now when he's in amongst a load of dead and rotten bracken. But that's the skylight above me, and you can see it's beginning to go. It's pretty saturated, the ground here. We've had, well, days and days of non-stop rain, and yeah, it's making the ground quite hard going now. And I think I'm going to have to wash bracken when I get home. Well, I've managed to get 8 pieces. I'm going to see if I'm going to get 2 more. It's getting really dark now, and yeah, I'm going to scamper on back to the workshop because I've got a full week of work doing groundworks and I need to get a few pieces completed, and on top of that I've got a custom order which needs to be completed as well. So, you know, I think if light permits I will get 2 more pieces. If not, I'm heading on out of here. Right guys, I've made it back to the workshop. I've got 10, 11, 12 pieces, I can't remember now. I'll have a quick little look and I'll show you how it ends up in the workshop. You know, it's not any big revelation, but I'll just show you what happens. When I get home, basically it comes out the car. I usually have to clean the car off, not as a professional valet, but quite often I have to get a load of like mud, wet leaves and any moss and skeg off the seats, because ultimately the kids are going to school, and I've been chastised more than once for getting the kids dirty or allowing the kids to get dirty with my harvesting detritus that I've left behind in the car. So I usually try to pick up the worst of it. But usually at the end of the season, the harvest season, I give the car a real good clean. Because ultimately the car will get dirty. You're in and out of mud. You're chucking sticks. More often than not wet, covered in moss. Could have been in, dragged themselves in mud. And, you know, and the dog in and out now. It's not worth doing a full valet all the time. I do the cleaning myself. I'm just calling it a valet. What I mean is, you know, a full all-round decent spring clean on the car. Because obviously from then on in I'm not putting raw material from the woods, the forest and the outdoors. And the worst that happens to the car then is the kids spinning a can of pop, you know, there's sticky sweets on the car, or me with surfboards and sand everywhere. That's the worst we get. So yeah, so putting that aside, like I say, I've just give the car a quick clean out, put the seats all back in their formation so we can load the kids in tomorrow pretty quick. And yeah, this is what it looks like as soon as I get in the workshop. So there it is, a bundle will arrive like that, as you can see, freshly harvested, still wet. Kit just gets chucked down there because I'm going to have to dry it, because I'll show you what's happening outside is absolutely hoofing it down. But from here, I've got to unstrap it and just do a quick examination. What I'm looking for is to make sure there's no, what I can determine straight off the bat, any bug damage, because obviously I don't want a piece of wood being in here which I think could be contaminated with any kind of burrowing insect. Right then guys, I've just got here, I've taken the strap off the bundle and it's soaking. It's going to have to be hung up because you don't want to keep buying the same kit because it rots out. My blade will need cleaning, and on top of that a little bit of oil, WD-40, because like I said, you know, if you protect your kit you can try and maintain it and make it last longer. work for you longer, and you get your money's worth out of it, and you're not continually buying the same kit. Obviously my gloves, they're soaking as well. But I'm going to discuss something that you won't hear that much talked about straight off the bat with stick making. And it's possibly the most important aspect to a stick maker or yourselves introducing what we'll call wild wood to your workshop or to your home or anything like that. That is the first initial inspection of that wood for boring insects, beetles, or any type of, shall we say, creature or critter that can damage this wood and then transplant itself to your stock or to your property. Always have a good inspection. You should do that in first initial look when you're actually in situ harvesting. Not always the best opportunity to get a full vantage point, if you're cutting it and you're really engrossed in harvesting. But when you get to this point, always check it. And what you're doing, I always say, if you're outdoors having a walk in the woods or anything like that, it's worth going online and looking at books to see what boring insects and beetles live in your location and what their holes look like or what time of year you could expect to see them. And if you familiarise yourself with that, when you're out in the wild, you may be able to spot holes and begin to recognise it, or the holes or what it looks like, before you start harvesting sticks. So basically I'm looking down the length and I can see on this one here, it's extremely wet. I've got moss and that on it, but there's no bore holes. I'm quite happy with that. That's looking a really nice piece there. Incidentally, I did actually harvest 12, so a little bit better than I thought. This one here, you can see this isn't actually a hole. What that is a heel mark, or where there was a shoot and it snapped off and it started to close over. It may produce a shoot there at some point, but that's like a hard callus, like a knot that's beginning to form there. But that's not a hole, that's nothing to worry about. Nor is that there, that's a scar on the bark. But yet again, looking down through, and I can see no obvious signs of beetle or insect intrusion into this wood. So I'm quite happy with that. Now I'll keep on doing this till my whole bundle is thoroughly checked, as I feel happy with, to put it in the rack. Not that rack, the drying rack there, back there. So I'm going to get through these pieces here. Right, so once I've finished my inspection like that, I don't actually go and towel the wood off or anything like that. That's a bit excessive in my view. But, hey ho, if you feel that you want to wipe the wood down, and if you've got a few pieces, that might be something that you can do and it becomes viable. But not for me. What I do is I always mark each species that I've got, quite simply because over time, bark has it changes colour. It changes basically its whole appearance in some species and some pieces of wood. So you could be left after 12 months, 2 years, looking at a piece of wood and going, what was that? And that's happened to me on a few occasions. Some pieces are just blatantly obvious, but Hazel and myself with ash and things like that, they can over time become pretty much look the same as they dry out on some pieces of the bark. But a piece of beech, if I can find one here, I think I've got a piece of beech. This piece here is so distinctive I wouldn't need to mark it, but I will do. This here, like I said, will ultimately, dry pretty much as it is, and due to the nature of how the actual, shall we say, piece of wood has been taken, I know that this is beech, but I will mark it on the end all the same, because quite simply it's just a practice I have. This is the wrong way round for you guys, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just working with what I got with cameras, and I could spin it around, but I'm continually running backwards and forwards checking. You know, it's not the best setup, as you can probably gather. But that's a B, and that's for beech. And smaller piece here. This is a piece of hazel. And I've just redone an H on it, because as you can see, what I put there is actually run. So I do know I need a better marker pen. But in any case, I'm marking every piece. And I'll do the same with these pieces here. This piece here, just get it like this, marker pen, there, H on that one there, and I'll rack it. There. And I'm going to do that with all those pieces you've just seen. Now, when you're drawing like hiking sticks, it's always recommended that you seal the ends, and that is to help aid, you know, or just help stop cracking or splitting, which can run from either end, you know, possibly an inch or 2 inches into the wood. You can mitigate that later on if you haven't done it, by cutting those ends off if you've cut the piece that you want long enough. But you know, you can reduce the chances of any splitting or cracking by giving something, you know, a coat or just a quick spray over the end. Now with me, how I do it, I usually let my wood, as I've said, everything's come in soaking wet. I'm leaving it here for, I don't know, a few days, and then I'll just feel the outside. If it feels, you know, dry enough, I will then just spray the ends to seal it. And I'll quickly show you what I mean. Well, this is a piece I've just pulled out the rack, and it's probably about a year old. It could be 2, I can't remember when I harvested this exact piece. But as you can see, it's marked H, and as you can see, there's no splitting. So, you know, whatever I put on there, which would have been some sort of clear varnish or whichever make of clear varnish spray, it worked. And this is the opposite end. And they are covered in dust and crap, because obviously this has been in the workshop two years and not touched. But there's no splitting on that. So all I do is, and it's quite simple, I'm not trying to teach people to suck eggs, but you know, you can use paints. There's a whole raft of products you can use. Anything that, you know, that could even be kicking around in your workshop or back of your shed already. And you can go online to see if they would be suitable for the application that, you know, what we're trying to do, which is just basically seal the end. So all you're looking to do is just put a coat of something over there which will dry and help stop any moisture ingress and stop it like drying too quick and splitting. So basically, just a can of spray for me, and you'll see that's wet again. I've sealed a load of dust and crap in there now, but anyway, I'll take an inch off this here anyway. But that's as simple as it is, and rack it. But for the ones I've just harvested, I'm going to let it dry a little bit, you know, for possibly 2, 3, even up to a week before I then do this process to it. But yeah, seal the ends and then put in your rack. Like I said, I'm not a big time stick maker. I'm, you know, more of a crafter, and you know, I don't need to harvest ridiculous amounts of sticks. You may be able to see my breath. It is getting quite cold now in here, but you know, that's my stock ready to use. You know, there's more than enough for me, and there's a wide variety of items there for me to select and use. That there isn't my first stage of drying. My first stage is there. I will stack all this along this wall here. The reason behind that is when I leave the outside door open, you get quite a lot of air coming through with the southwesterly winds and everything like that. You may be thinking that's fantastic, that would aid drying. But I prefer to allow the sticks to have some very slow drying to start with. And from there, they will make their way over here on the far side. So basically, I start using from that side and I'm always working back through like that. Here, it's having a slow dry to start with. And then it goes over there, which it will be get a lot of wind exposure or shall we say air movement. And then usually for the last couple of weeks, it ends up in the other workshop. And coming into this workshop here, you'll see I've got some already straightened and ready to go and to be made. Usually I'll have a pile out here as I go down through. And they're now in a extremely, shall I say, controlled temperature in here. Obviously over here I've got a radiator. This time of the year it's connected to the inside house, so if the wife is ever running baths or hot water, we do get heat out here. So ultimately those sticks then get, you know, what I would call a little bit of a turbo boost in the drying process here. So I basically say I've got like a three kind of a three-way drying system basically, and being in here is their last ultimate bit in that process. They can sit for like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, a pile of them, and obviously they're getting that internal heat there from the radiator, which then does any finishing drying that needs to be done. But because they've already done 95-98% of their drying, you know, this is just the finishing stage. Most of the drying, like I was saying to you, will be here, air dried from the outside air movement. Now, I did used to keep a volume of stock elsewhere, and that was through the shall we say, the gold rush, as I'll call it, of the 2 years where everybody, to keep in line with the measures that we were all put under for exercise, everybody wanted a hiking stick so they could say, or, you know, it physically and visually looked like they were out hiking for exercise. So there was a bit of a gold rush, but we're no longer in that. And for me, sales did drop off shortly after that period. So, you know, I don't harvest stupid amounts and don't have to store them elsewhere. This is it, and this is all I will require, and I shall be more than busy doing what I've got here. So, you know what I mean? It's down to your volume that you're trying to push through, what mechanism and what way you will end up having to dry your finished product, or not your finished, but your raw product. But, you know, this is my system, and I would hazard a guess that most, you know, manufacturers have their own little nuances or little ways they do it, and even possibly any little secret traits which they may have squirreled away, you know, in their thought banks or pros or mind, which they believe is possibly, you know, that little bit better a way to do it. But this is mine, and I'm quite happy to let you see it and share it with you. So that was a little look at what happens to the raw material when it comes into the workshop area, and basically how I store it, how I rack it, and how I dry it. I will go more in depth in each individual aspect at some point, but that just gives you a flavour of my actual setup, and what, you know, pretty much every stick maker will be doing to some level or some degree, if not in a better or more controlled environment than myself. But my method works. I mean, I've got several hundred pieces over there, you know, possibly in the region of 300 against that wall. There is a massive stack there. And, you know, I do know that I shall be extremely lucky to get through all those. And if I don't, as I said, it all just works its way along. I'm going to collect slightly more this year because sales have been up. But yet again, I will not just harvest for the sake of it. You know, if you don't need it, leave well alone. But anyway, yeah, that was a quick little or a brief little look at how things happen in here from that point of view. It is getting cold, and I did say I was going to do a little bit more to these sticks. But do you know what? You know, it's going to take a lot of motivation. I'm going to have my tea and see how I feel after that. But I do need to kick up the ass to get these done. But anyway, this is Andy, and this is the Folklore Workshop. But, you know, you're watching me on the Hidden Valley Footpaths channel. And I will get out hiking. I just thought I would try to introduce this to the actual stick making videos that I've just put out or published just recently. So there is a small little volume in one big hit, and you can roughly see what happens. But ultimately, I want to get out on the trail hiking. So yeah, stay safe, and I hope to catch you out on the trail. All the best.